Good morning, Tuscaloosa, afternoon, Tuscaloosa, West Alabama, internet world, anywhere that you're listening to the Joe Gaither Show right here on BamaCentral and BamaCentral.com. Hope you guys are having a beautiful Thursday so far. We've had a fun week on the program. You can listen to us on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, and on Amazon. You're watching us on YouTube, on Facebook, and on Twitter. Of course, you can find us at Joe Gaither6 on any and all the social media machines. We want to say a big thanks to Sutton Smith for joining us yesterday, WVUA's digital reporter, talking college football playoff, Alabama basketball, Jalen Milroe, and much, much more. We've had a lot of fun this week talking about Alabama. Big old win over Kentucky, and then basketball having a big old win against Indiana State and setting up a win over South Alabama as well. But now it's time to dial back in and talk about football. Alabama football is playing a game on Saturday at 11 a.m., and we are pleased to be joined by Gene Henley today. You can follow him at Gene Henley 3 on the X machine, on the Twitter machine. He covers UTC for the Chattanooga Times-Free Press, my hometown paper, and I am very happy to welcome in Gene Henley today to talk UTC. Gene, how are you doing, sir?
Oh, man, life is great, man. I hope it is for you as well.
Absolutely. It's very good. Very good. Just want to ask you about a check in with the hometown. How's Chattanooga been? I haven't really lived there since 2010 or so, but basically that will always be home for me. And just give us an update. How is Gig City?
Gig City, the Scenic City, whatever you want to call it. It's good here. I actually live about 30 minutes away in Cleveland, but obviously the whole area is it's thriving, it's flourishing. It's one of the nice days, and it's one of those seasons where I think Alabama's kind of like this as well, and where if you don't like the weather one day, just give it like 3-4 days, and it'll kind of get where you want it to be. And I'm looking outside; it's beautiful outside today, and yeah, man. I mean, it's a Scenic City for a reason.
It doesn't feel like November 16th, not even here in Tuscaloosa. It feels a little earlier in the calendar, but we're sitting here 2 weeks left in the football season. And it's the last week of football for Eugene Henley, at least regular season wise. UTC is finishing up its season. They're 7-3 so far. And can we call this a top 25 matchup? The Mocs are number 16 in the college in the FCS coaches poll. What's been the story of the UTC season so far? I've got a couple of family members who went there and graduated. They said, Joe, we've beaten all the bad teams. We've lost every good team. So what's been the UTC story of the season so far this year?
It's been a little bit better of a season than that. Like the problem, like it's one of those deals where at the FCS level, you're only judged on whether or not you're one of the 24 teams that makes the playoff. But Chattanooga, for the second consecutive years, won 7 straight games. I would actually liken Chattanooga's football history to that of, like, say, a Kentucky or something like that, where there's a bigger basketball brand at the university, but the football base is demanding a level of success that they really haven't seen before. If you go back to the last time that Chattanooga played Alabama, that was 2016. That was the top 10 Chattanooga team in the country that I believe had like 7 or 8 players that got drafted or played in the NFL off that team. That was a really good team. That team got beat 31-3 by Bama. It wasn't really close, although the funny graphic is going around that Chattanooga was winning 3-0 after a quarter. But like they did beat Mercer this year, and Mercer finished their season 8-3. That's likely a playoff team. They lost by 2 points to Western Carolina. They scored 50, but gave up a last-second field goal. They lost 17-14 to the number 2 team in the country. So the answer as to what this team is probably somewhere like a good to really good team that has struggled in some big moments and lost some really tight games. And their biggest loss was actually, we'll see what Saturday is, but their biggest loss was actually the first game of the season against North Alabama. And that was North Alabama's second game of the season. And Chattanooga made a lot of first game mistakes and just, didn't play well. So I would say it's been a successful season, but if they were an FBS team playing like in Sun Belt or Conference USA, they'd be preparing for a bowl here in a couple of weeks. But at their level, it may or may not be good enough, and that won't be evident until about 12:30, 1 o'clock on Sunday.
Yeah, it's basically bubble time for UTC, and I guess for the casuals or people who just follow the bottom line, you're going to wake up Saturday. Alabama fans are going to wake up and see 7-3, and they're going to see second in the Southern Conference, and say, okay, FCS program doesn't stand a chance, and they likely don't. But you played Furman last week, as you alluded to, number 2 team in FCS, and really, what was it, 17-14? It was a close ball game. Very defensive game. It seems like UTC is right there on the precipice, on the edge of really competing at a high level in FCS.
It's going to happen. I mean, I think regardless of what happens over the next 72 hours, barring the portal, they're going to return 9 offensive starters and I believe 8 defensive starters next year. Things could obviously happen. The quarterback will be back next year, and he's really good. All 3 of the receivers have at least 1 year. 2 of them still have 2 years left. They return 4 offensive linemen, a talented tight end. They lose 2 running backs, and that hurts. But then they return 8 starters on defense. The 2 edge rushers are out. A corner from Alabama. He's from Mobile. He's gone, but everybody else is back, and so it's going to happen. Chattanooga fans will say, well, we've heard that before, but it's a little different this year. I mean, the end of 2023, the start of 2024, it's one of those weird I can't talk now, weird deals where defining success is kind of, dependent on who's the person defining it. I would say it's successful. I would say they're on the cusp of being really good to great. But again, you're either in the playoffs or you're not, and everything else is kind of a failure.
Well, how do you think it's going to play out on Sunday when the playoff field is announced? Do you think UTC is going to be one of their 24 teams? I know they're right there, kind of on the bubble.
Yeah, it's all going to be dependent on, I think, some of Saturday's results. One of the teams they actually lost to, Western Carolina, has kind of been fading a little bit towards the end of the season. But if they somehow lose, then they have the same record as Chattanooga. They'd have 1 fewer conference victory, but they will have lost to, but they would have struggled down. They would have beat Chattanooga, but they'd have 1 fewer conference victory. Then you've got Mercer, who has 1 more win than Chattanooga in the regular season, beat the team that Chattanooga lost to, but they lost to Chattanooga. So how do you define that? The question will be, will their conference get 4 teams in? And that seems to be, if they get 4, then Chattanooga's in. But, what's the perception of the conference? You really only feel good about one of the teams, Furman, who, obviously won the league. It's undefeated. It's number 2 in the country. You only feel good about that team. Everything else from this point forward, I believe, is going to just kind of be up to the hands of that 12, 13 person committee.
Well, we're talking to Gene Henley, writer for the Chattanooga Times-Free Press. You can follow him at Gene Henley3 on the Twitter machine, on the X machine. We appreciate him giving us some of his time today, talking UTC, as it is Alabama's last home game this weekend, Saturday at 11 a.m. You alluded to the nice passing game, and the quarterback Chase Artopoulos, a four-year player at UCLA, didn't really play a whole lot, and the receivers as well. Number 15 in FCS for passing yards per game, and Artopoulos is number 9 in FCS as far as passing goes. Coach Saban last night talking about the passing game and talking about UTC, saying that these receivers are now, obviously, you take it with a grain of salt, but saying these receivers are SEC caliber receivers. Tell us about really the passing game that Alabama's going to be facing. I mean, has already played Texas, has already played LSU, so you've played some of the better FBS passing games in the country. But really, what's the challenge that Artopoulos, I just had the other names, Javon Whitley, Sam Phillips, and Jamoy Mays will be bringing into Bryant-Denny Stadium?
Yeah, and I think, Deion's kid said something about it at the beginning of the season. He was asked the difference between FCS, FBS, and it's up front. And that's the challenge. That's where that'll really kind of define if I'd imagine if Chase has time to throw, he could be pretty mostly, successful with those receivers. I'm not out here trying to predict 300-yard games. I'm not stupid, but I mean, defining success is, kind of relevant. I mean, it's relative in this case. Um, Jamoy Mays is an FBS receiver. I know obviously his direct messages get very active when seasons end. I know that for a fact. The Watley kid is a slot receiver. I think he had a game. I think he had 230 yards and like 4 touchdowns in a game earlier this year. He's short. He's quick. He's perfect in the slot. Their third receiver is Sam Phillips, who was a freshman All-American last year. He's a little bit more of a possession guy this year. I think he's only averaging like 10, 11 yards a catch, whereas the other two are averaging like 17, 18. It's a talented passing attack. And, it's one of those things where you kind of hope that that gets a chance to show itself in the playoffs. But if it may not. But I think there's going to be like just maybe one moment that stands out on Saturday. And again, like you judge games like this, in my opinion, I'm not out here again. I'm not predicting upsets like Alabama versus Chattanooga. I refuse to be that person. Chattanooga has played Bama 3 times under Saban. They scored 3 points.
Yeah.
They've been beat 49-0, 45-0, and 31-3. And 2 of those 3 teams were ranked top 10, top 15 in the country when they played Bama. So I'm not acting as though they're going to win. So you judge success off plays, off moments, off a drive. And I think that they have the potential to do some of that because they're going to have to, because the rushing attack is just not quite what it's been the previous few years.
We hit on the rushing attack, and UTC had kind of a bad, unfortunate incident, or not incident, but a limp forward towards ACL. The leading running back for UTC towards ACL against Mercer. So, 3 weeks ago? How has that really impacted the UTC running game?
Yeah, a limb was probably going to break the all-time score, the school record for rushing yards. I think he was 124 yards away from breaking it. Very unfortunate. He actually tore it. I don't remember exactly when he tore it. I think it was maybe against Western Carolina. Maybe it was. If I felt like he was a step slow all year, and he averaged over like a 4 or 5 year span. He averaged 20 carries a game. So like that just culmination of just beating and beating, and he was not there was nothing that he did elite. He was just a hard running back, and where that changed was obviously when your greatest talent is your try hard, then and you start to you don't have the same sort of natural instincts that you can use, and you're getting slower and slower. It just has an effect. But they've got a couple of backs. Gino Appleberry transferred from Western Kentucky. I think he was there for like a year. He's been there for 4 years. He's certainly played a lot better as of late. They've got a sophomore from I want to say Alabama, somewhere in Alabama. He was a 3-star prospect, Reggie Davis, really talented back. He's a sophomore. He's just now getting on the field.
Broke off the big run against BMI.
Yeah, and he's definitely the most talented back in that room, and a lot will be expected of him next season, and whatever remains of this year as well. But it's not the same rushing attack. A couple years ago, they had to lean on it very heavily. They didn't feel as strong about the quarterback play, but it's not the same rushing attack. And can it be effective? Can it have some moments? Can it do something great? And I think that's kind of why they've used some of the quick passing game to a Phillips on the outside, a Jamoy Mays. You hope they break a tackle and maybe get some extra yards after catch. But they're having to use like the passing attack as an extension of the rushing attack, just because they're just not quite as good there.
We're talking to Gene Henley, writer for the Chattanooga Times-Free Press. You've been covering sports for Chattanooga Times-Free Press since 2008, and you've already brought up the 2016 matchup between Alabama and UTC. Nick Saban brought that up as well twice this week now. Yesterday in his post-practice press conference, talking about, I was watching that game, and it was 3-0 in the second quarter. And he said it on the flip side way, talking about the good players that Alabama had on the field that day, basically saying that UTC needs to be respected and should be taken seriously. Take us back to your memories for 2016. Obviously, you've hit on it just a touch, but what do you remember about that 2016 game, and kind of just what goes into when a team like UTC plays a big-time FBS opponent?
Man, it was funny because it was a little similar to this year, whereas, tomorrow, the day after the game, they'll find out their playoff fate. But they knew they were in 2018 or 2016. So I felt like they played very just kind of, we're going to try to make some plays, kind of have some moments. They had that opening drive that led to a field goal. I can't remember if there's if Jalen Hurts threw a pick or something like that, but there was something that happened that either forced a punt or whatever. And again, like that was a Chattanooga team that had a really good quarterback. He got hurt at the beginning of the 2017 season, or I thought he would have had a chance. I'm trying to remember something. They had an offensive lineman that I believe is still with the Titans. Cole Strange, who was the first round draft pick of the Patriots, was redshirting that year. They had a defensive lineman, like they had, linebackers. They had a safety that's now playing. It's a backup linebacker for the Falcons now. They had some talented players on that roster, and so that I remember that being a very, very methodical first drive of the game. I don't think they threw a pass further than about maybe 4 yards and just maybe hope for the best.
Yeah, I have plays 50 yards on 5.5 minutes for that.
They were like, it was going to be a very methodical, because I mean, again, like you can say what you want about your talent, and like I said, they had seniors, they had like 2-3 All-Americans on that offensive line, and they were not about to act as though we were going to sit here and dominate the front against Alabama's front. Because I don't remember who it was. Maybe it was a Quentin Williams. I don't remember who was on that line, but it was obviously a talented front because it's Alabama. That's the standard of college football. However people want to frame it with Georgia or whatnot, Bama is still the standard until Saban retires. And so they weren't out here trying to reinvent the wheel with anything crazy. They were methodical. They got some points, and they walked away feeling happy about it. And yeah, I do remember Saban during the week had made a comment that year that, hey, this is an SEC defense, and people laughed at them. They made fun of them. So, the fans thought it was just coach speak. And so I think, what should be understood with Saban is when I don't think he just makes these comments just to appease people. Like when he spoke about, Artopus in the passing attack, I think it had a value. When he spoke about Jay Person earlier this week, I think that had a value. Like that man's seen a lot of college football, and I think he understands a good player when he sees it.
Absolutely. And so we're going to be looking forward to UTC coming to Tuscaloosa at 11 a.m. on Saturday. You can follow us right here at BamaCentral.com for all kinds of coverage, and follow Gene Henley for the other side's perspective at the Chattanooga Times-Free Press. So what does a good day, obviously the idea that is the next day on Sunday. What happens with the playoff fate on Sunday for UTC? And Alabama's sort of in that same boat a couple of weeks down the road on the playoff bubble. But what's it going to be on Saturday like? Okay, Saturday, 3:30 p.m. The game is over. Zeros on the scoreboard. Oh, you're the UTC's in the locker room. What does a good day look like for UT? Obviously, the win is the greatest day, but that 45.5-point underdog, we're not going to sit here and say that that's very likely. What's a good day look like for the Mocs?
I think it's going to be judged by plays, by moments. Can you find a drive that leads to a field goal? Can you find a drive that leads to a touchdown? Can your defensive back get to not your defense back. Can your defense get to the quarterback? Can Jay Person strengthen his case to get drafted by getting to the quarterback or getting into the backfield? Can Ben Bruton, the other edge rusher, those two have a combined 14.5 sacks this year, can they find a way to get to the pass rusher? Can Cam Brown, the Alabama native, that's a cornerback, can he find a way to pick off the pass, 3.5 hours from home? Can the offensive line have a moment? Can one of the receivers have a now that's kind of how I would judge success, because it's not going to be judged on the scoreboard. So can you have some moments to where you say, you know what, if we do get in the playoffs tomorrow, we've built some momentum based off of what we do. Like you're finishing the season playing the standard of college football. You're finishing your FCS season playing the standard of college football. Can somebody watch that game that maybe is trying to make a decision as to whether or not Chattanooga belongs in the playoffs or not, and say it's kind of hard to keep a team, top 15, top 20 team in the country that's doing this, that's got the game 10-3 in the third quarter with the ball, Whether Bama goes on to win that game 31-3 or not, it's they're 10-3. They got the ball midfield. That 80,000 starting to get a little restless. Those call-in shows. I've heard those call-in shows after a Bama Chattanooga game. They're very interesting. Those call-in shows, those lines are already starting to lighten up a little bit. Can they do something that either A, elicits fear, some level of fear in the fan base, or causes, frustration, or B, can they just do some stuff to where they say, we can package that stuff away because we're never going to play another team the rest of the way that looks like this.
Well, if Alabama gives up a first down or ends up punting, you're going to have the Alabama fans. Oh, fire Tommy Rees. Oh, fire Kevin Steele. This team, yada, yada.
It was Kiffin. Yeah, it was Kiffin in 2016. I did see, I think some fans the other day had brought up how Saban blew up on Kiffin on the sidelines, and that was like one of the small victories for them. And then, like I said, the field goal, there was probably a turnover. Maybe I think Keontae Davis, the D-line that played for the Patriots for a little bit. I think he may have had a sack or something, but there were little moments that just caused some grumblings because you go into that game. I get it. When you're Bama, it doesn't matter who the FCS team. I don't care if it's North Dakota State or South, whoever the FCS team may be. You're not going into a game against a team that is 2 divisions lower because let's be honest, there's Power 5, there's Group of 5, there's FCS. You're not going into that game thinking that this game is going to be close in any way, shape, or form.
Right.
So anything that, like I said, that's why I say anything that they can do positively, anything that causes some frustration to the other team's fan base is, yes, anything is possible. I feel like the program has grown a little bit since 2007, but certainly I think Joe certainly appreciates you listening in, and I certainly appreciate you listening because I don't know why I want to listen to Joe, but please listen to Joe. But yeah, like anything is certainly possible. I think that if Chattanooga, I'll answer this way: if Chattanooga somehow finds a way to beat Bama, then I think that there are going to be a lot of questions that need to be asked. Let's just say that. Like, I don't expect it to happen. Nobody expects it to happen. But there will be a lot of conversations on Sunday morning and Saturday around 3:30. Like, I'm pretty sure college football would stop it would pause. Like Tennessee, I think, plays Georgia. I think that game would just stop. And I don't want to live that life because I'm more of a basketball person. I do not want my my Saturday afternoon and my Sunday to be taken up by people that are begging for 5-10 minutes of my time asking what happened against Bama. So anything's possible, anything can happen, but judge the small victories and take it from there.
Well, on that track, and as we kind of wrap this bad boy up today, Coach Saban on Monday said this game was a kind of a game that the UTC players dream about. It was his comment. They dream about games like this. And some of us in the room thought, oh, Coach, that might be a little belittling to the UTC players. I mean, obviously we don't know them, and you know them better than we do. So just ask your perspective. Do you think that is maybe a belittling perspective, or is this kind of a moment that UTC or just the proverbial conceptual FCS player dreams about coming to Bryant-Denny Stadium? I mean, because we're not dumb. You said it. And the players, they know themselves. They know what the line is on Saturday. Yeah, they could win any given Saturday, but like what's likely is not going to go in their favor on Saturday. Is that something that they really dream about, or is this really kind of, okay, let's collect the check for our school and and everybody get out of here without an injury?
I think SCS players dream of playing in FBS environments because that's what they always wanted to do. I mean, nobody grows up saying, I want to play at UTC. They say they want to play at Tennessee. Nobody grows up saying they want to play at Jacksonville State, North Alabama, or I understand Jack State, but or UAB. They want to play at Bama or Auburn. Like that's, I think the bigger picture there point is that, yeah, like, I mean, but specifically Bama, yeah, I mean, I get it. They're the standard of college football, but I think Bama could be, I think Chattanooga starts the season off with Tennessee next year. Bama could be Tennessee. You know, Josh Heupel could say the same thing. I believe they play Georgia State next year. Oh God, I think that I don't remember who the coach's name is. He beat Tennessee in 2019 when I was covering Tennessee. he could say the same thing. Like these guys, these players, they dream of, they grow up watching those 15, 20 players from Alabama. They grew up wanting to play at either Bama or Auburn, or maybe it was a Tennessee, maybe it was a Georgia, but you get my point. I think it's one of those comments where you're like, it may have felt wrong in the room when he said it. I do understand what he's saying. He just used Bama as a specific case, but I think that his larger point there is, yeah, they want to play in this moment because they do understand what playing well in this moment means, and I think that's the dream. But I mean, Jay Person went to Appalachian State out of high school. Amarian Krim, who is an offensive lineman for Chattanooga, and grew up in Adamsville. I don't know. He played at Minor High School which is close to Tuscaloosa. He went to Houston. He transferred from he grew up in he played at Houston for a little while. They've got a ton of guys who have played at this level. So yeah, there's a dream of obviously wanting to get to that level, but I don't think it's specific to Alabama as much as it is testing yourself against the highest level of competition you possibly can.
I got you. We've been talking to Gene Henley, writer for the Chattanooga Times-Free Press, and we encourage you to follow him at Gene Henley3 on the Twitter machine, on the X machine. As we get you out of here, is there anything Mocs-wise, football-wise, that we haven't covered that Alabama fans or that college football fans in general just need to know about UTC as they go into the final week of the season with a playoff bubble the next day?
Yeah, they did. They actually, I believe. Let me make sure I'm right on this. I'm pretty sure they have an Alabama alum. Well, obviously, Lorenzo Ward is the defensive coordinator. For Chattanooga. I'm actually working on a piece on him for Saturday. He was reminiscing on, I think it was the 1990 game against Auburn or somebody. There was a game in 1990 where they were up 16-0. He suffered a concussion. He woke up, they had lost 21-16. And they finished, I think, like number 3. It was the year that Bama and not Bama, but Miami and Washington, I think, split the national championship. But they have a kid named Jake Hall who was, I believe, a long snapper for Alabama. I'm not sure if he graduated or not. I'm thinking he did. He did play. He was at Bama. He was on the Bama roster for all 4 years of his college career. And he's been at Chattanooga for 2 years, and this could be his last game. But it's one of those cool moments where, possibly his last game is at the place that he played his college career, played the majority of his college career. He's from Saraland, Alabama. Not sure proximity, but
Saraland, South Alabama, they have a powerhouse football team.
Yeah, okay. And so he was there, I think, 5-6 years ago. So it's a really cool moment for him to get back on that field. Although somebody told me earlier this week that if you asked him to get anywhere around that stadium, he couldn't do it. Like he couldn't. I don't think he could get to the visitors' locker room if you asked him, because why would he know? And I'm not sure he could get to the home locker room unless there's a specific way. But yeah, I think little cool moments like that, to see a bunch of kids that are from the state of Alabama, probably like 15 to 20 of them that are from the state of Alabama, getting a chance to play a game at a place that a number of them, there's some Auburn fans on that team too, I've heard. I don't know. One kid, I know they've got 2 Cam Browns. There's one Cam Brown whose older brother was a defensive lineman for Auburn a few years ago. I can't remember his name, but I think he was a pro. But
Derek Brown.
Yeah, that's his brother. And so, like, cool moments, for so many of these kids that grew up in the state of Alabama, knowing about the rivalry, knowing all this stuff, knowing all the stuff that goes along with playing in that, in Bryant-Denny Stadium. I think that'll be really cool for so many people involved.
It's going to be a blast on Saturday. Will you be in town, Gene, or are you watching it from the couch?
I will probably be watching this one from the couch because of the uncertainty of the playoff and the whole, what's it called? Budgets. So you got to pick and choose your battles. And this is one I'm not sure that I'm going to choose in favor of. But I certainly love the area. Been down there I was there in 2016 with Chattanooga. I was there in 2019 when they did the light thing for the Tennessee-Bama game. I've been there a couple times, and obviously it's a great time. Amazing food in the press box. Probably the best SEC venue I got to. So.
And we do appreciate the Brian Denise staff who takes care of us in the press box. Absolutely. Gene, this has been a blast for me. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope that Saturday goes smoothly for you. Make sure you follow Gene Henley at the Chattanooga Times-Free Press. You can subscribe right there for all his great work, and follow him at Gene Henley 3 on the Twitter machine. And hopefully, outside of Saturday, UTC gets in the playoffs. You get a little more work to do on football before it fully goes into basketball.
I don't mind it at all, man. Hey, thanks again for having me. I certainly appreciate it.
Absolutely. This has been Gene Henley joining us on the Joe Gaither Show. Hope you have a great day, Gene. Enjoy the weekend.
Hey, you too, man. Thank you.
Yes, sir. As Gene Henley joining us, and that was great. I mean, he gave us more UTC talk than we did yesterday with Sutton Smith. Yesterday was basically like, what are we doing playing this game? So now you actually know about the Mocs. Been close throughout the years, throughout this year. Played Furman to a defensive battle, played Western Carolina to an offensive shootout. Just didn't quite get over the hump in those certain games, and that puts them on the playoff bubble. And we'll see what they end up doing on Saturday. It's going to be another fun day for Kool-Aid McKinstry and Terrion Arnold in the secondary, dealing with that passing game. Coach Saban very complimentary of the passing game last night in the Naylor Stone media room. And so we were going to want to pay attention to Chase Artopoulos, UCLA transfer quarterback, Chase Artopoulos. And so we'll see what he can do with the Mocs. And yes, as our friend Julian Lee said, anything can happen. Alabama is a 45.5-point favorite, yes, but she commented on the Facebook side, just like you guys can comment on the Facebook side at Joe Gaither 6, that not to take UTC lightly. Excuse me, don't take them lightly. Remember UL Monroe from 2007. And yeah, I mean, I don't expect Alabama to have a close game, but I think that you're going to want to keep the pedal to the metal this weekend, especially with where Alabama is, especially where Alabama is in the playoff ranking. We talked about it with Sutton Smith yesterday, that we kind of think the USF win, the struggle win with USF, is hurting Alabama more than any loss. So, even the Texas game. So you don't want to have a struggle win on Saturday. We don't want to have a struggle win with UTC. You want to go out there and beat the brakes off of them. Respect what they're going to do. Respect what they're going to bring to Bryant Denny Stadium. Hope they leave without injury, but you're going to want to beat the brakes off of them at 11 a.m. and start getting ready for the Auburn Tigers. All right, so that's going to do it for right now. Here's going to be the plan of the rest of the day. If you're watching us live, I'm going to be joined by a correspondent from Missouri and from Mississippi State at later points in the day. So we will be going back live on the social medias at Joe Gaither 6 on all the social medias. If you're listening to this on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and on Amazon, then it's going to turn right into the Missouri and Mississippi State conversations that we're going to have with our correspondents at MizzouCentral.com and Cowbell Corner. Same thing if you're watching us on the BamaCentral YouTube channel. This is about to break and cut right into those two interviews. But if this is all you've got for us today, you've been watching us live, I really appreciate you guys. Appreciate you, Julian Lee, sending me your comments, questions, queries, and complaints. You can follow us at Joe Gaither 6 on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon, wherever you can get your podcasts, at the Joe Gaither Show on BamaCentral and BamaCentral.com. But if you want to see it a little bit more later in the day, we're going to talk Missouri. Josh Heupel, little Eli Drinkwitz controversy. Definitely going to talk some Missouri. We're going to talk some Mississippi State as well. Who the hell are they going to hire as their coach after firing Zach Arnett? We'll do that with our Missouri correspondents and Mississippi State correspondents coming up next on the Joe Gaither Show right here on BamaCentral and BamaCentral.com.